Here we go, episode 6, Trials and Tribulations. This week we're going to put some grips on, matchy of course. Next up we've got the new Shimano pedals. These are the XT, fitted with the bone marrow sampling pins on there. And then lastly for the build, we're going to show you how to set up a single speed chain line. Alright, for your single speed chain line, we're going to need a few things. Alright, to start with, what you'll need in the way of parts, I managed to pick myself up an old Dura Ace Shimano chain, 9-speed. Getting pretty rare these days, but I found them nice and strong back in the day. You'll need a cog of selected whatever gear ratio you want. I'm going to be running 22-19, so 22 up front, 19 in the rear. That was always a good ratio. It'll be slightly heavier due to the wheel being 27.5 instead of 26. Now to space out that cog, you're going to need a bunch of, these are used cassette spacers out of a 9-speed. These ones are nice and thick. You can use whatever, 11-speed, 12-speed, doesn't really matter. I just collect them as I throw out people's old cassettes. And I've got a couple of little skinny back of cassette ones as well, just in case we need to adjust minute amounts. After the spacers, you will need a way of locking the last cog on. So this one was actually an 11-tooth cog that I've ground all the teeth off of. Keep the weight down, you know what it is. And a cassette lock ring to lock that together. It's got little teeth in here so that binds in and stays tight. If you just had it on a spacer, it'd probably work, but it's not as likely to stay tight for as long. And then last thing you'll need is a way of tensioning. This one is the Inspired, and I got Frank to put this mount onto the frame. So you'll probably, if you're setting up like a normal dirt jumper or something like that out of a mountain bike, you might want to use like an old derailleur, something like that. Pretty simple way to do it. It's got a spring in it. This one's got a spring you can preset and get it nice and tight. Super simple. 2 wheels. And then tools you'll need to set it all up. Start with a set of vernier calipers is ideal, so you can measure the tube. And then your obvious things, chain whip and cassette lock ring tool, chain breaker, and a means to hold the chain while it's under a bit of tension, and pen and paper so you can write it all down. Let's get started. Alright, so first measurement we want is the center of this seat tube to the center of the cog. So that will give you your distance out from the center line, and you can transfer that to the rear hub to work out where the chain line needs to be. So first measurement, take your vernier calipers and measure this tube. Just be careful not to scratch Neil's nice paint job. So we've got 32.2 millimeters. Halve that, so divide by 2. We get 16.1 millimeters. So that gives you the center line of the frame to this point here, and then you need to add that measurement to the 16.1, add that onto what the measurement from the side of the tube here is to the center of this cog. 32.8, add that onto your 16.1. So that makes it a chain line of 48.9. Now a common chain line is 51, 52 and so on for a mountain bike. This is a little bit narrower. It's only a 142 rear hub, so it should work out pretty well by previous calculations. So what we want is 48.9 to from the center of the hub to where the cog is. So now we need to take the rear hub measurement, so that's the 142, divide that by 2, take away this number, and then that'll give us a number from this side dropout to the cog. Make sense? Right, so you got your 142 rear hub, divide that by 2, gives you the center line, so 71 millimeters from the dropout to the center, then you minus the 48.9 that you got from the center to the cog, and then that leaves 22.1. So we need to go 22.1 from the right hand side dropout over here to where the centre of the cog needs to be on the rear. 22.1 millimeters from the inside of the dropout to where the centre of the cog needs to be. So you can see where the cog needs to lay. And I just need to have a bit of a trial and error of how many cogs will fit in that space. Just going to mark a little pen line on the frame. And that's basically at the bottom here where the dropout, the axle is actually sitting up against. So that equates for that measurement there. And so we should have a 22.1 from there to the centre of the cog. And we're pretty damn close. It's within a millimetre. I think that'll be just fine. Could perhaps do a little half a spacer. Alright, and that is bang on with a spacer and a half, so it's 3.5 millimetres of spacers behind, and then I'll just fill up the space between the cog and here with all the other spacers and the locking ring. You can of course just eyeball it. If I swing you around here a little bit, I might not be able to get you there. You can just eyeball it from the top of the cog, but the more accurate it is, the longer your chain's going to last, and it's under extraordinarily high load on a single speed because you've got no other choice. And particularly on a trials bike, it's extra load and you don't really want that trip to the dentist. And now the rest of it's pretty straightforward. Whatever tensioner you're using needs to line up with the cog and it should be good to go. Almost out ready to ride this thing. Alright, now so these jockey wheels here line up with the cog and there's spring tensions in that. It's quite a lot of spring tension in this thing. Alright, chain goes on. Start with the open plates, the outer plates first, towards the back. Roll that through. Once you get to your cassette, your cog, lay it on there, roll it back over the jockey wheels. Make sure you've got your chain hook at the ready. This is just made out of a spoke, so get creative. Pretty cheap tool. And for the single speed, we want it as tight as we can get it, so I reckon that'll go in that one there, be under nice tension. Pin, the Shimano pin's got a little break off piece, a little guide. Push the guide pin in, make sure you don't go too far, otherwise you'll break the flange off the other side. That link will be slightly stiff, we just need to give it a couple of side flexes. Flexing it side to side just opens the plates up. Okay, can move it now. Then just snap off the pin at the back. You should be good to go. And that is built. Hey, sneaky little workshop test. Alright, thanks for watching and see you next week. We'll be outside getting these brakes bedded in and then we can start hitting some rocks and stuff.